Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to today's Wild Rift guide. In today's guide, we're going to be taking a look at the rabble-rouser Gragas. Gragas is a flexible champion that can be played in multiple roles, with multiple different builds thanks to his high damage numbers and utility. He has multiple abilities that can crowd control enemies, and they have the potential to kill an enemy in just one swift combo. Taking a quick look through the build, as mentioned with Gragas, he can be played in multiple different roles with different types of builds. You have this AP burst damage build on screen now that you can play in the jungle or mid lane. You could play it like a hybrid tank AP Baron lane build, as you can see on screen now. And then you have this support build as well, which is more to do with full tank Gragas. But for this basic guide, we're going to be focusing more on the full AP burst damage build, because I feel like this is the best to play when starting out with Gragas. For the first item, you want to go for Luden's Echo. Luden's Echo is a great first item for any AP champions that you're going to be playing in Wild Rift, and kind of Gragas turns it into an AP assassin with this build. So getting that little bit of extra damage from the Disordered Echo passive, and also all the base stats are great, like you get a lot of ability power, maximum mana, and ability haste. Is overall a great item for Gragas. Then for the next item, we just want to go for more ability power, and Rabadon's Death Cap is the best option for us because it gives us the most amount of ability power out of any item, and it also increases our overall ability power by 40%. For the boost, most of the time you want to go for Lucidity boots. These can be swapped out for any defensive boots if you feel like you need them. And then for your boots upgrade, you're always going to go for stasis, because you're going for this high heavy burst damage build. You're not going to be very tanky, so timing your stasis can be the difference between staying alive and maybe potentially dying, because you can take a lot of damage with this build. For the next item, we have Void Staff, another item that gives us a lot of ability power, and it also gives us the percentage magic penetration. So if enemies are starting to build magic resist, we can easily penetrate through them with this item. Then we go for Infinity Orb, another great item that gives us a lot of ability power, a little bit of movement speed, some flat magic penetration, but a big part is our abilities and empowered attacks will critically strike for 20% bonus damage against enemies below 35% health. So when you're trying to go in with them Gragas combos, when you have your Infinity Orb, when you take them low enough on health, your abilities and your empowered attacks will deal bonus damage and be able to crit as well, which is so important to make sure that Gragas can look for that one-shot potential with his combo. And then for the last item is Lich Bane. We're going to be using our abilities a lot with Gragas, and we're going to be auto-attacking a lot in between our abilities. So this means that our Spellblade passive will allow us to deal bonus magic damage, and also this item gives us just a lot of ability power, ability haste, and also that little bit of extra movement speed. For the runes for this type of build, we're going to go for Electrocute. This will give us a little bit of extra burst damage. With a basic combo, you're easily just going to use your second ability, your third ability, and also auto attack with maybe your first ability in between. So there's many different ways of which Gragas can proc Electrocute, and really easily as well. So all you have to do is hit an enemy champion with 3 separate attacks or abilities, and you get to deal bonus adaptive damage, which is very, very nice for Gragas. Gathering Storm is great for AP champions. As you can see, the numbers rise quite quickly. Every 3 minutes, you get 4 AD, then AP, sorry, 10 AP, 18 AP, 28 AP, and this keeps going up as the game goes on. So when we're scaling into the middle late game, when we're getting all of these items, we're going to get even more ability power with Gathering Storm. Bow plating is really good to help us protect us against a lot of burst damage. As mentioned, Gragas doesn't have a lot of HP with this build, so he can be bursted down quite quickly, but bone plating will help us take the reduced damage from the attack, from the current attack, and also the next 3 champion abilities or attacks against you within a few seconds. And then for the last rune, we have Hunter Genius. This is going to give us more ability haste when we get unique takedowns. So you get 3 ability haste at the start, and every single time we get a unique takedown, we get 3 ability haste. So if you kill all 5 enemy champions on the Rift, you'll get an extra 15 ability haste. So this will help you be able to use your abilities more often. As I said, with the combination of getting ability haste from Luden's Echo, you also get a little bit of ability haste from Lich Bane as well. So overall, it's really good. And we're going to be playing this build in the jungle, so we're going to make sure that we are going to go for Smite and we're going to go for Flash. But when you're playing this build in any other lane, you can just take Ignite for that little bit of extra damage. But that's everything for the build. Let's head on to the abilities. First up, let's take a look at Gragas's passive, which is Happy Hour. It's nice and simple. All it is after you cast an ability, you restore health. So every single time you take damage and you use one of your abilities, you'll be able to restore a little bit of health. This is actually quite a lot of health. It's a lot better if you go for a more tankier build because it scales with your bonus HP. But as you can see, after I use an ability, I'm able to restore health. This does have a little bit of a cooldown, but after the cooldown is off again, you can use an ability and heal a lot of health. This is really, really helpful, especially during team fights, and this could be used a lot with your second ability because your second ability has a very low cooldown. As you can see, a 4-second cooldown in the late game, so you can keep on using this ability. As I said, it won't work all the time because it does have an 8-second cooldown, but every single time you have this ability up, when you use the ability, as you can see, you restore a lot of health. And this is also very good when clearing through the jungle because this helps you stay healthy as you're clearing through the jungle. Onto Gragas's first ability, we have a barrel roll, which Gragas rolls a cask to a target location that explodes upon recasting the ability or after a few seconds, and the enemies hit take magic damage and are slowed for a percentage for a few seconds. Now if this ability stays on the ground for over 1.5 seconds, the damage and slow amount is increased by up to 150%, and the cask can also reveal the area and it deals 50% damage to minions in the laning phase. Now the second part is probably the most important part of this ability. So when you throw out your first ability, as you can see, it's quite a lot of range. You can actually use this as a poking tool in the early game, but when you throw the ability at the start, you can see that the barrel is brown, but as you can see, over time the barrel turns red. This is when you know you have that extra damage boost. So when you're clearing through the jungle, you don't want to recast the first ability straight away, or sometimes even in the laning phase you don't want to recast it straight away. You want to wait for a few seconds. As you can see, when I throw it, wait for it to spin around a few times, and when it turns red, that's when I know I can recast the ability, and that will give you the biggest damage output on this first ability. For Gragas's second ability, we have a Drunken Rage, which Gragas reduces damage taken by a percentage for 2.5 seconds, and the next attack within 5 seconds after drinking or after using the ability becomes empowered to splash at nearby enemies for bonus magic damage plus a percentage of their maximum health. So again, a pretty straightforward ability. All you do is when you use the ability, you'll be able to see a little indicator next to the ability. This will be the 5 seconds that you have to be able to auto attack afterwards. So when I use the ability, Gragas turns purple, and as you can see, there's a little circle that goes around the ability, and when that expires, you can hear the sound will also disappear, and that's how long you have to get the empowered auto attack. And as you can see, the empowered auto attack will be able to deal that little bit of extra damage. So you just drink with your second ability, empowered auto attack, and you'll be able to deal bonus damage. Now the important thing to note with this ability is you actually want to make sure you use this ability before you combo it with anything else. This is because your next auto attack afterwards will always become empowered, even if you use other abilities afterwards. You don't have to use the second ability and then you have to auto attack afterwards. You can combo this with other abilities. For example, I can use my second ability, use my third ability to get into range, and as you can see, I still have enough time to use my empowered second ability auto attack to deal bonus damage. So every time you're looking for an engage, always use your second ability so you have that empowered attack up and available. Moving on to Gragas's third ability, we have Body Slam, which Gragas charges forward, colliding with the first enemy hit to deal magic damage to nearby enemies. And enemies hit are also bumped backwards and stunning them for just a second. Now, Body Slam's cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds if you successfully collide with an enemy. So if you don't collide with an enemy, as you can see, it's on like a 9-second cooldown. But if you successfully collide with an enemy, you'll be able to reduce the cooldown by a few seconds. So you can actually use the ability multiple times during a team fight. Now, the most important thing with this ability is that it doesn't have the longest of range, but you can extend the range by using flash, and this is one of the basic combos that you need to learn with Gragas, because this is the difference between winning games with Gragas and not winning games with Gragas. So what you want to do is when you use your third ability, if you're not in range, use your third ability and then use flash, and as you can see, it extends the range of your third ability. That means that we can use our second ability with our third ability auto attack and then use our other other abilities afterwards when we need to. And as you can extend this with flash as well, so we can e-flash into our first ability in a powered auto attack, and as you can see, that does a huge amount of burst damage to the target dummy. It would be exactly the same if you do this to any enemy champions. You can also kind of trick the enemies in a way with your third ability, because you can actually redirect the direction of Gragas' third ability. So say for example, I'm using my body slam over here, I can actually flash over here, and as you can see, my flash actually redirects the third ability. I've done this a few times and it catches a lot of people off guard. So I can use my third ability, and maybe I'm trying to target an enemy over here, I can just do this, but then I can flash in this direction and I can quickly snap onto a valuable target, and then I can use this on top of my other abilities to burst that target down to 0. Now sometimes the third ability and flash can be a little bit predictable, especially in high elos. So sometimes what you can do to catch the enemies off guard is you can use flash into third ability, which is a little quick combo that you can learn. The flash will also help you. Say for example, I've got enemies in front of me here, but I want to get into the backline. I won't be able to e-flash in this situation because the target dummies are too close. But if I'm able to flash E, then as you can see, it's just a quick little flash E, and it's really difficult for the enemies to kind of react to this ability because it's very quick and it stuns you for a second, which gives you enough time to use your other abilities and deal a lot of damage. Last but by no means least, let's take a look at Gragas' ultimate, which is explosive cast. Gragas holds a potent cast that explodes when it lands, dealing magic damage and knocking enemies away from the explosion center. That's the most important part, from the explosions center. And the cast has a fixed travel time, and it can't be affected at all by any sort of stats. So you actually do have quite a lot of range with this ability, but like I said, the most important thing to know is that it pushes enemies away from the explosion center. Now when you autocast this ability, sometimes it doesn't go into the best position. For example, in this situation, the game will try and put the explosive cast behind and knock enemies towards you, but this doesn't always happen most of the time. And most of the time you actually want to manually aim this ability, because maybe you want to focus a high value target in the backline. Let's say we're in a team fight here and this target dummy over here is the enemy champion that I want to focus. So I can use my second ability, use my explosive cast to reposition. Okay, it didn't reposition because of the wall, but you kind of get the idea. So I can use my explosive cast to reposition the target dummy, then use my third ability with my empowered auto attack, and as you can see, we can do a high amount of burst damage. But if I just auto cast this ability, it's just going to try and basically predict where I want to use my explosive cast. But like I said, it's not always going to be the best option. This ability is really good to pull enemies into your team. You can basically split up enemy champions and isolate enemy champions, and this is where Gragas can shine. So I can isolate all these target dummies here on the right hand side, and I'm able to isolate one of them and then burst them down with my abilities. And as you can see, we can just deal a huge amount of burst damage. So really cool ability and a really big amount of playmaking potential. Now, I've spoken a little bit about combos already. There are a few basic combos that I do want to go over again. The first one is, obviously, we're going to make sure that we're using our second ability at the start of every single combo. So you want to use your second ability, and what you want to do is use your ultimate to reposition an enemy champion, use your third ability and your empowered auto attack, and then use your first ability afterwards. This will easily proc electrocute and easily deal a high amount of burst damage. Again, using our second ability at the start, we want to use our third ability and our flash to extend the range of our third ability, and again, this will give us a huge amount of burst damage, about 3,500 burst damage. This is just to a target dummy which has 100 armor and 100 magic resist. But if you can land that basic combo, which is your second ability into e-flash, auto attack, and then your first ability, this is the best combo that you can use on Gragas, because it will stun them and it will give you enough time to use your empowered second ability and your first ability and deal a huge amount of burst damage. Now, lastly, let's take a look at the leveling order with Gragas. Now, in the laning phase and in the jungle, you always want to go for your first ability. This will help you poke a little bit during the laning phase, and it also deal the most amount of damage to your starting jungle camp. Just make sure when you're starting in the jungle that you wait until you get the empowered extra little bit of damage with your first ability. This will deal the most amount of damage in jungle. Now, when you're in the laning phase, it's probably best to go for your third ability. This will give you a little bit of mobility in the laning phase, but when you're in the jungle, you want to go for your second ability. Again, this is your highest damage output that you can deal with Gragas's abilities to try and clear the jungle camps as quick as possible. Then we want to go for our third ability to have all our abilities available, and the first ability we want to max is our first ability. The reason being is that this is one of our main damage outputs. It helps us poke, it helps us do a little bit of damage, it helps us the most when clearing through the jungle, and it just helps us in general with dealing damage to any enemies that will step in our way. Obviously, make sure that you level up your ultimate when possible. Now, the important thing is that you want to actually max your third ability second. Now, the reason why you want to max your third ability second, you can see here when you take a look at the ability and the stats, it will lower the cooldown by about 1 second at every single rank. This is so important, and because it's one of Gragas's main combos and main mobilities to get around the map, because you can dash over walls with this ability, you want to make sure this is on the lowest cooldown possible. And with your second ability, you only get a little bit of increased damage reduction and base damage. So that's why we go for maxing our third ability second. And then we want to max our second ability, and like I said, max our ultimate when available. So that's pretty much everything with the Gragas guide. I'm going to take you all through a trip in game now. I'm going to tell you all a few tips and tricks when I'm going in game. So I'll see you all in just a second. All right, on to the gameplay. We go with Gragas. So we're going to be playing Gragas jungle in this gameplay. I'm going to show you all a few little tips and tricks with Gragas as the gameplay goes on. Show you how I clear through the jungle, what tips I have about jungle, and everything else. Now, what I like to do at the start of the game, and what a lot of players like to do, is they like to start with a control ward and go and ward their opposite buff. So if you're starting on the blue buff, you can ward red buff. And if you start red buff, then you can go and ward the blue buff, as you can see, and you just have enough time to make it back to golems, and then you can start that off. Now, the important thing is, as you can see with my first ability, what I do is I wait for my first ability until it turns red. This is something that I said in the abilities guide, to make sure that you deal that extra damage to the jungle camps. I didn't do it the second time, unfortunately. Sometimes you can accidentally double click it, but most of the time you want to wait for it. As you can see here, I wait for it, and then I'm able to deal that little bit of extra damage. You can heal up a lot throughout the jungle as well, and most of the time you do want to start red buff because you're not really going to run into any mana problems at all, which is quite nice. So we're just going to clear pretty much the whole of our red side jungle. Going to clear our golems into red buff, now into raptors. Obviously, we do a lot of AoE damage because we have our auto attacks, and also we have our empowered auto attack. So we're able to clear through it quite quickly, 1 minute and 8 seconds, and then we'll go over to our walls. You could do like a full level 5 clear if you want to. You can go to blue buff now if you want to as well, and go and clear that. But I like to try and do a little bit of a full clear. I saw Master Yi, as you can see, Master Yi is in mid lane. So what I do here, instead of going for my blue buff, is I actually go straight towards the scuttle crab. You can see Master Yi was waiting for the scuttle crab to come up. And you can see I changed from the control ward into the sweeping lens, and that allowed me to use my sweeping lens, so I knew that Master Yi didn't have any vision. And the great thing about Gragas is that you can burst down the scuttle crab or any sort of jungle camp at all. Burst it down and easily get the scuttle crab. Now you can see I engage here because I have a level advantage. I didn't really see how low my Darius was, so it's a little bit of a misplay in terms of that. Master Yi flashes over the wall. I try my best to save this Darius here. But as you can see, the Darius eventually does fall, but I am able to get the trade kill in the end. So I think I should have been that aggressive with the play because of how low my Darius was, but my Darius was able to hook the Master Yi over the wall. And as you can see, I just took advantage because I have had a level advantage, so I was able to just take a little bit of an extra trade. Sion is using his ulti. I think he actually uses ulti bot lane here, if I remember. Oh no, it was mid lane. Yeah, he's just using his ulti mid lane, and I see this engage mid lane. TF has a really good flash, and as you can see, I haven't gone back to base yet, but because my Twisted Fate was in trouble, I moved down to the bot side and I tried to defend my Twisted Fate, but in the end it turned out to be absolutely nothing. So I basically just wasted a lot of time there for no reason. So now we're going to go back to base and spend the little bit of money that I got with that kill. So I got the components for Luden's Echo, and then we got the boot. So I haven't actually cleared my blue buff yet, which It's kind of bad, to be fair. You want to try and clear both your main buffs as soon as possible. As I mentioned, with the jungle, you kind of have to adapt every single game. Every single game in jungle is going to be different. You're not going to do the same jungle path every single time. You're not going to go for the same ganks every game as well. They're always going to be different. Like I said, in this game, I did full red side clear into wolves. I realized that Master Yi was doing the scuttle crab, and Master Yi in the early game is obviously not that strong, and I have electrocute, so I know I have the early game advantage against Master Yi. So I'm able to take the scuttle crab away from him, get the level advantage, and then from that level advantage, I was able to engage, do a little bit of extra damage. You can see I walked up here. I tried to defend the Twisted Fate. I'm not really too sure where the Master Yi is, and Twisted Fate did push up a little bit. So I'm kind of just hovering around the mid lane. See, Twisted Fate uses the ulti, so I see that Master Yi is on his red buff. So I'm just going to carry on clearing the red buff myself. So you can see there, it was just more of like hovering because I saw the Twisted Fate was really far pushed up and he might have been in a little bit of trouble. But now I'm going to move it into the mid lane instead of going to golems because I see that no one is in the mid lane because Twisted Fate pushed in top lane, so I don't want to leave this kind of minion to die basically to tower. And that's another main thing as well with jungle, is that you always want to take a look at your lanes and always want to have a look and see where your lane states are, because your laners losing a whole creep wave or your laners basically losing minions underneath the tower is like golden XP wasted. So if you can grab it, it's actually really, really nice, because even though it doesn't give you the most gold in the early game because you get that reduced a little bit amount of gold, it's still enough to warrant you going into lane because you get all the experience as well. As you can see, we're halfway to level 8 already in the jungle, which is very, very strong. Now, what I like to do is I always like to go for Rift Herald first. As you can see, I'm pinging towards the Rift Herald, so my team knows that I'm going towards the Rift Herald and I'm not going to go into contest for this dragon. Darius is in a little bit of a fight here against the Scion, but nothing else happens from it. I don't think I saw the Master Yi, but I just saw it now with the actual game. You can see Master Yi has the same idea as me. Rift Herald gives you so much gold in the early game. It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you can get the first dragon and then look to scale that, then it's really, really nice. You can see I hit the eye, and as soon as I hit the eye, I instantly smite. Now, unfortunately, I am going to die here, even though I do hit a very nice double body slam. But the big thing was that we was able to get the Rift Herald. We did lose the trade in the end, unfortunately, but Nautilus did roam up here, and their support didn't roam up. So that means that our bot lane is able to get a few tower plates in bot lane. We get the Rift Herald as well. With the Rift Herald, I waited until the eye was exposed on the back, and then when the eye was exposed, I auto attacked it and then instantly smited, because I knew as soon as I auto attacked the eye that I'm able to get the Herald low enough that I can hit the 800 smite. So now we're just going to move towards the dragon here. You can see for some reason Yasuo is just chilling there. I was going to engage, but then I saw the Nautilus there. You can see what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually body slam, and I'm going to use the Rift Herald mid lane to get the tower plates. And Nami gets an insane bubble here on 3 members. You can see everyone is so low. Great cold card by the Twisted Fate, locks up the Master Yi, and we're able to get a few kills. Nami did absolutely insane there with the bubble. But as you can see, what I did was I saw that the whole team was distracted by a little bit of a skirmish in the jungle. So what I was able to do, I was able to use that to my advantage, and a great explosive cast here onto the body slam was allowing me to get 2 other kills. But yeah, I just wanted to use the Rift Herald mid lane before 7 minutes, and the reason why you use Rift Herald before 7 minutes is that you want to try and get the tower platings. Tower platings gives you so much gold in the early game. If you wait to use Rift Herald after 7 minutes, you don't really get that much value from it. So as I mentioned, the Rift Herald was going to be basically completely untouched because everyone was in the river, and I was able to get a few tower plates to myself in the mid lane. And like I said, really good explosive cast. That's one of the reasons why explosive cast is so strong. I was able to split up both the Jinx and also the Scion, which the Kai'Sa and the Scion, which Jinx was able to snipe the Kai'Sa in the end to do an extra little bit of damage to kill her off. And then I was also able to get the body slam onto the Scion and get the kill over there. You can see I'm going to the bot lane now. The reason why I'm at the bot lane is because no one is here. And again, I'm always looking at my lanes to make sure that I get the most amount of gold possible and I don't miss out on any gold. I'm walking up a little bit here because I thought Kai'Sa maybe would have face checked or something, or would have stayed in the bush. And I think if Kai'Sa was to stay in the bush there, I can definitely look to one-shot her with my combo with my explosive cast, with my body slam, all my other abilities. My team is pushing up quite aggressively though. I am not anywhere near it, but as you can see, I'm at 6,900 gold at the moment. I pretty much have a 1,000 gold lead, and this is just a really good way to play jungle in general. You know, just take... Oh, okay. I thought I was able to get the Kai'Sa there, but unfortunately I wasn't. But yeah, it's all about just adapting every single game with jungle. Adapting, understanding the situation of the game, understanding your lane states, understanding what lanes are strong and what lanes are not strong. Obviously, most of this game was put up in the top side. I didn't really gank bot lane at all, but I didn't really have any opportunity to gank bot lane because Master Yi in the early game obviously went for the early game Scuttle Crab in the top side, which I was able to steal, and then he cleared the ward, and then I kind of just spent most of the time in mid lane or top side because my mid lane did call that he did need a little bit of health, and because it is Twisted Fate against Yasuo, Twisted Fate does push in Yasuo quite quickly. And sometimes, you know, the Yasuo can play a little bit too aggressive. So we got 2 items now. As you can see, 7,600 gold. My Darius does have a bit of a lead as well, even though Sion did get that first blood. So I think we did definitely help this Darius in the early game. We're going to go towards the second Rift Herald now, which is spawning in a few seconds. Yasuo is mid at the moment. I should really be pushing out this mid lane. But Twisted Fate is going towards mid lane. Yeah, you can see I'm looking at the mid lane wave at the moment, and I know that Twisted Fate is not going to be able to come over and help us, but it's fine anyway. We still take the Rift Herald, which is really, really nice. So just picking my teammates back for now because they're going to play quite aggressive to try and catch out this Nautilus. But whilst everyone is having a little exchange in top side, I'm going to try and take this advantage to push down mid lane and try and use this Rift Herald to try and take this tier 2 tower. Again, realizing the situation of the game, everyone is in top side that I see. I see the Master Yi is in mid lane now. So what I'm able to do here is I'm able to basically just kite around the Master Yi, use my body slam, and as soon as Master Yi uses his W, I use the explosive cast to knock him out of the healing and out of the W, and I was able to kill him and get a nice cheeky solo kill. I think I only made one little misplay there where my first ability wasn't where I really wanted it to be. I auto casted my first ability, which actually landed where Master Yi started his first ability, but not actually where he landed. I think the perfect way I could have played that was manually aim my first ability underneath me. So when Master Yi does use his first ability and does land underneath me, or on top of me, I should say, then I'm able to use my first ability straight away and do a bunch of damage. I did miss that first instance of damage from my first ability, unfortunately, but I was still able to do enough with Electrocute, with my body slam. It was still really nice. But yeah, you see, I'm just messaging my team, telling them all to reset. They need to spend their money. They need to make sure that they're ready for this next dragon fight. This next dragon fight is pretty big. Gonna take this red buff. As you can see, most of the time I'm farming through the jungle. That is really important as a jungler to make sure you're farming. You can see I'm gonna land a double body slam here onto 2 members. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch onto the Master Yi with the with the explosive cast, but you can see I'm probably overextended a little bit too much here, to be honest with you. Master Yi is going to try his best to try and kill me. I do still have status though, so I'm in a comfortable position where I can kind of overextend like that. Twisted Fate is going to use the ulti under the tower, as you can see, and kill off the Master Yi, I think. Yeah, and kill off the Master Yi, which means we have Dragon for free. So it's really good for the Jinx to actually use her ulti, not just for damage, but the main reason why Jinx used the ulti was to cancel the back ports. I think a better situation for me there would have been to use explosive cast first and then use body slam. But I just tried to get in close range as quick as possible. Obviously, Master Yi was able to use his flash before I used my explosive cast. So he was able to basically escape. You can see Sion is going around with his ulti. Not really too sure where he's going with his ulti. I think he's just going around in circles. I think he accidentally crashes here as well. And then when he crashes, yeah, he just dies. So I think he's just going around in a circle. He's trying to do laps around the map. But unfortunately, it's not enough for him, and he will die in the end. So yeah, level 13 now. As you can see, Void Staff can be completed on my next back. I'm just going to clear off the blue buff. As you can see, Gragas' jungle clear is very, very fast with all your abilities. You have very, very low cooldowns on all your abilities as well. Because see, I got the ability haste from Luna's Echo. I got the ability haste from Hunter Genius this game as well. So we got a lot of ability haste, which means we can just keep using our abilities over and over again. And when we keep using our abilities, we're going to keep dealing damage. We're also going to get healing because of our passive. And we're also going to get a nice amount of crowd control. So I'm pinging over towards the Baron because I know that we are so far ahead this game. And again, I'm using this time to push in the top wave. I think my team is okay at the moment. They're just pushing in on bot side. I don't think they're far enough, but yeah, I mean, I think they're far enough ahead now where they can basically 4 versus 5. Now that the jungler is dead, I'm pinging towards Baron again because I really want to start Baron because the jungler is dead. But again, it's me understanding the situation of the game. I see the whole of my team is in bot side, so no one's going to take the top lane wave. And because I'm trying to prepare for Baron, I want to try and prepare my wave. So I got top lane pushing in. The mid lane is also pushing in. So if the enemy team comes towards this Baron and tries to steal it, then they're going to lose all the minions up in the top lane, which they've already lost. And they're going to lose all the waves in the mid lane as well. Really nice hook there from Darius. It was able to get us the kill on Yasuo. And Sion is up in the top lane, just trying to clear that off. Again, the whole reason why Sion's up in that Baron lane is because I was able to push that in when the Baron was spawning. So we got Baron now. So just pushing down mid lane with the Baron. I unfortunately missed I just missed everything here. This is really, really unfortunate. I didn't get into range of my E flash. I was trying to get into range of my E flash, but I just wasn't able to, unfortunately. And yeah, the game ends there. Would have been really nice if I hit the E flash and then into my explosive cast, so I would have been able to knock the Master Yi back. Either way, very, very clean game overall. A bit of a slower game, to be fair, than what I'm used to showing. Not like a crazy amount of kills or anything like that. As you can see, I only did 15k damage overall. But again, I think I did pretty well as a jungler to kind of control the game in a way and control the objectives, secure the objectives as well. Obviously with the first Rift Herald, I wasn't able to get the kill. Well, I died basically on the first Rift Herald. I wasn't able to get any kills or anything for it. But I was able to use that Rift Herald mid lane to get tower platings. Then we got a really nice fight around the dragon, and the game kind of snowballed from there, and it just took a lot of time for the Master Yi to get him from behind. Yeah, hopefully you all learned a thing or two from this guide. Appreciate you all watching, and until the next guide, I'll see you all soon. Peace.